Hello and welcome back to the Solland Uprising Mighty Empires campaign. I am Garion Reaver. This is the end of the 5th round and the beginning of the 6th. If you have not already seen the 5th round of battles, I recommend you go check those out. They are all linked in the description because obviously you're about to get spoilers for how they ended. Now, because of the results of those matches, the different factions get Empire points to spend in the upcoming Build and Conquer phase. So, the first battle was Clan Deathtoll versus Sylvania, which Clan Deathtoll won with a massacre. Normally that would give them 5 points, we'll come back to that, and Sylvania gets 1 Empire point. The second battle was the Empire versus the Skull Smashers, and the Empire won with a narrow victory, giving them 3 Empire points. The Skull Smashers got a loss, giving them 1 Empire point. And then the third match was a team battle. It was Clan Deathtoll versus Wizenland and Solland, so Wizenland and Solland get the same result, and the result was a draw. However, because Wizenland and Solland actually completed the scenario objective, they upgrade their victory to a narrow instead of a draw. That means that Wizenland and Solland get 3 Empire points, and Deathtoll, this was their second match. So when they're in multiple matches, you average the 2 results and then round any fractions down, meaning that the 5 and the 2 rounds down to a 3 Empire points for Clan Deathtoll. So overall, apart from the Skull Smashers and Sylvania, everybody got 3, which is just funny to me. And next is the Build and Conquer phase where they get to spend their Empire points. This goes round in turn order, so it is the Empire first, then Solland, then Skull Smashers, Clan Deathtoll, Wizenland, and Sylvania. So they're going through, starting with the Empire, they selected the land grab event, meaning the first tile they claim only costs 1 victory point. So they are going to claim 2 tiles, first this one, and then this one, because rivers are worth a lot. Next is the Solland Revivalists. They have 3 to spend, and they're going to spend 2 to claim this tile here, and then they're going to spend 1 to build on their newfound river to build a mine. So the mine goes on, and then the flag goes on. So they now have another source of income, and they are slowly building up their border with Wizenland. Next, the Skull Smashers only have a single point, and without the land grab event, the only thing they can really do is raid. So they generate 7 gold, which is good because they had absolutely none. Clan Deathtoll with their 3 points are going to do something that hasn't yet happened this campaign. They are going to conquer a tile. In order to conquer a tile from another faction, you have to have an adjacent tile that you control, and you have to have won a battle against them in that round. Clan Deathtoll are going to conquer this tile here. So they delete that, it costs 3, but they take it over. And to conquer, it normally costs 3, however it costs 1 extra to conquer a castle, a city, or a mountain tile. So they couldn't have taken Drakenhof, they couldn't have taken Grenstadt, and that was the most valuable one that they could take. And those of you who know your Warhammer lore might find a bit of funny irony here that the Skaven are coming in and taking over a mine controlled by the undead, considering, you know, one of Nagash's most famous things is that he used to have a mine that was like basically entirely Skaven slave workers there. It's a funny parallel. Wizenland, with their 3 points, are going to spend 2 to claim a tile here, and then they're going to spend 1 to build a mine in that tile they just claimed. So they are actually now adjacent to Castle Braun, the capital of the Solland Revivalists, and I don't imagine Caster is very happy about that. And then finally Sylvania with 1 Empire point, like Skull Smashers, can't afford to do anything other than raid, so they will raid and generate 2d6 gold. Wow, 2 gold! How rich they must feel! I mean, they do already have 18, so, you know, they are still pretty rich. And to wrap up round 5, all of the characters who are currently out of commission but healing, most of them have just returned to the fight. Although, funny thing, there are more dead characters in this campaign so far than ones who are still living. Yeah, war is bad. And with that, we wrap up campaign round 5 and we go into round 6. So let me just reset the board. So the first thing we do in the new turn is calculate empire size. To remind you, empire size is 1 point per tile controlled, an additional point per city controlled. Turn order is decided by the number of tiles that each empire owns, with ties solved by the empire size, that is the number of cities they have in addition to the tiles, and then further ties solved by dice roll. However, dice are not necessary this time, as it comes out quite cleanly this round. First of all is the Skull Smashers, who only have 3 tiles. They do have a city, but it is off tiles first, so they go first. Then Solland, Revivalists, and the Empire both have 4 tiles each. However, the difference is the Empire has a city, and Solland does not. So Solland has an empire size of 4 and goes second, whereas the Empire has an empire size of 5. Next is Sylvania, with 6 tiles, as they lost a tile to Clan Deathtoll. And speaking of which, Clan Deathtoll and Wissenland both control 7 tiles each. However, Wissenland has 2 cities, taking them up to Empire 9. So Deathtoll is 5th, and Wissenland is 6th. Which means Wissenland also gets the largest empire. To remind you what that means, the largest empire gets 100 free points in every battle this round. Next, in turn order, they choose events. However, before we go on to that, there has been a slight change. Last round I changed Elite Army to Mercenaries, and based on a bit of feedback I've sort of been reconsidering sort of how to go about the Mercenaries, how to stop it from just being a necessary pick for like Solland every single round. So they suggested a gold cost, and I think that's a really good idea. So now I have 2 tweaks to the Mercenaries event. First of all, it costs gold. I'll come back to that in a second. Second is when you choose it, you have to choose which of the 3 mercenary factions, that is Dark Elves, Dwarves, or Ogre Kingdoms, you want to have as your mercenaries. You are then stuck with that one until you retake the Mercenaries event, at which point you can swap it to another. And the gold cost is, in the event phase, if you have the Mercenaries card, which Solland does here, as you can see they've got Mercenaries Ogres, they then have to pay 1d6 gold per battle that they were used in the previous round. That way, the more you use the mercenaries, the more it costs, and you're going to have to do more to try and keep up with it. So they were used in 1 battle, which means Solland has to pay 1d6 gold. Oh, they got a pretty good deal. They only have to pay 2 gold out of their stores, so they're down to 13. So let me know what you think of that as a way to balance mercenaries, keep them interesting, but now Solland doesn't have to retake that because they still have mercenaries on payroll. However, if for whatever reason they can't pay, then they lose the mercenaries card and will have to retake the event. And in the meantime, other people can still hire mercenaries. There are lots of ogres out there, and they are more than happy to fight other ogres, so we'll see if another faction picks that. So thank you to the person who suggested in the comments that it has a gold cost. If anyone has any other suggestions for homebrew ways I can tweak the campaign, make it a bit more interesting, make it a bit more sense, just let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts. Back to events. First of all, the Skull Smashers, they will take the best one, which is Land Grab, as that is very useful for whoever is at the bottom of the table. Next, Solland are going to pick Scouts, because I think that is actually a really useful one for making sure you win a battle. It can be underestimated by me, I will admit, but I think it served I think it was the Skull Smashers very well when I actually remembered to use it. Next up is the Empire, and they are aware of the threat Sylvania is posing, and although Wissenland is technically sort of winning, Wissenland has sort of got an unspoken alliance with the Empire. They're not enemies in this. The Empire is going to go with Disaster, and they are going to target Sylvania, because Sylvania represent the biggest threat to them. The Skull Smashers, they're really not a threat. The Clan Deathtoll are mostly sticking to the mountains or Sylvanian territories, so they're fine. Sylvania is the threat who's pressing into Stirland and Aveland. So a Disaster, Sylvania has to roll a d6 for every mine, castle, and city, and on a 1, it is destroyed. So let's go through, starting here with this mine at the top. It's fine. Second mine. It's fine. That mine is now not under their control, so the castle at Gringstadt. That's fine. And then Castle Drakenhof, which is actually a city, is also fine. Well, they had a decent chance of getting something on those 4 rolls, but they did not. Next, Sylvania, they have a bit of a rat problem. So they are going to go with Fool's Gold, and they are going to use that on Clan Deathtoll, meaning Clan Deathtoll cannot gain any revenue. And that's particularly potent, both because they just stole a mine from Sylvania, and because mountain mines are much better than river mines. So Clan Deathtoll's in one of the best sort of financial positions, and cutting that off when you're about to go into a big war with them, that's very good for them. Clan Deathtoll, I think they are going to build. So although they can't generate any revenue, they are still going to be in a position when they can at some point. So they're going to build a mine here, because, as I said, mountain mines are fantastic. And finally, Wizenland is going to go with All or Nothing. And I was considering going with Diplomacy and using that on Solland, because Solland's the only ones who can really threaten what would be essentially a Wizenland victory if I was going with the ordinary victory conditions for this campaign, which I'm not, like I said in a previous one. I think it would be sort of boring to cut the campaign off at this stage when stuff hasn't interacted as much as I would have liked. It's because the map's a bit big. I'll know for future ones. But anyway, so I could have gone with Diplomacy, but I thought, like, what's really threatening Wizenland? Solland is. So if they still want to put down, even though they've had this, like, they work together, they are clearly getting into a position to threaten Castle Braun. And to capture Castle Braun, they would need 4 points, because 3 for the conquer, 1 for the castle. So if they need 4 points, that means that's a solid victory. If instead they get All or Nothing, they only need a narrow victory in order to conquer the castle. So either they lose anyway, or they win. Basically, this guarantees if they win their match, they can conquer the castle against Solland. Because no one else is really threatening Wizenland, so it seems the logical play for them. And with the events sorted, we go into the revenue phase. Now, any mines that factions have can generate them gold. Remember that if all of the dice on a mine roll are the same, the mine is exhausted. So we'll go through in turn order, starting with with Solland. So Skull Smashers don't have any. Solland has 2 mines. So I need to roll them separately in case they're exhausted. Mine 1 generates 9. Mine 2 generates 11. So they get a total of 20 additional gold. Yeah, that gives them a total of 33. Maybe the mercenaries are undercharging them. Maybe I should increase that to a 2d6. Yeah, I'm going to increase that to a 2d6 because, I mean, that's the equivalent to 1 mine, and pretty much anyone who's going to hire mercenaries is going to have multiple mines. So yeah, I'm just going to immediately increase that to a 2d6 and charge them an extra 6 now. So this is for the mercenaries that they would have done, so they would have lost the 6. They did have it. They had 13 left before gaining this. So, yeah. So they're now on 27 gold. The Empire has 1 mine, so they get 7. Adding to the 21, the Empire now has 28 gold. Sylvania has 2 mines, so top one first generates 10. Lower one generates 4, total of 14. Adding to the 20 they already had, bringing them up to a massive 34 gold. Clan Deathtoll are under the effect of Fool's Gold, meaning they cannot collect any more, leaving them on a measly 14, which is still double what the Skull Smashers have, but anyway. And then by far the richest faction, Wizenland has 4 mines. So, let's see, they get 7. Oh, double 5, so that's 10, but the second mine is depleted, so this mine here is gone. Can be rebuilt, but for now it's gone. 8 more. And another depleted mine for 4 more. So that is the brand new mine they just built, because I was going top down, as you might have guessed. So that's 2 depleted mines. But by my count, they gained 29 gold. That bloody doubled their gold. Over doubled their gold. Bloody hell. They now have 57 gold, Wizenland. That's absurd. I think in future campaigns, I'm going to add in a lot more sort of personal rules, because I think it would make sense to me that Wissenland has to pay taxes to the Empire each turn and stuff like that. You know, stuff to make it feel a bit more dynamic, a bit more integrated, and probably could have made this whole thing work better as having these two factions. But, yeah. Let me know what you think of that. I can start implementing that from next turn if you want. I don't know how much that would be. Maybe, yeah, but that would probably be 2d6 as well. But now that we have the massive stacks of gold, it is time for... I've just noticed it's going off the top of the screen. Now that we have the massive stacks of gold, it is time for challenges. Again, going round in turn order. Each faction can make a challenge unless they themselves have been challenged. Starting with the Skull Smashers. They are going to challenge Wissenland, because clearly they are incredibly rich, ripe for the picking, and they don't have Kurt Helborg, so, you know, plus. Next is Solland, and after working together with Wissenland, they have a newfound understanding of their erstwhile enemies. You know, they've stood together, they fought together in the streets of Fieldorf, trying to defend the former capital of Solland against this Skaven incursion, and they're like, yeah, I feel we carried that fight, we can definitely take them. If we attack them now, we can take Fieldorf, capture the former seat of Solland, and give our cause an immense amount of legitimacy, bring in the ogres. So Solland is going to also challenge Wissenland. The Empire is going to follow through with what they already did with the disaster, and they are going to launch an attack against Sylvania, because like I said, that to the Empire, Sylvania is the biggest threat. Wissenland are essentially their allies. Sylvania now cannot challenge. Clan Deathtoll, they are going to challenge Sylvania, because clearly they're making a push in through here. So they are going to hopefully try and take Castle Drakenhof. And then finally, Wissenland are unable to challenge. So, yeah, Sylvania and Wissenland are taking a lot of a beating in this one. I'm thinking for this, the Skull Smashers Wissenland battle will be 2,000 points. Solland Wissenland will be 2,500, because this is probably... It's basically fighting not in Fieldorf, because Solland Caster doesn't want to damage the city. A, he doesn't want to damage the city he's about to conquer, and B, he doesn't want to scare the residents of the people, you know, scare his people, basically, with the ogres he is going to be using in this fight. Also, side note, because it occurred to me during the previous battle, Oswald Werner, who vouched for Caster, he was the Heavens wizard who got obliterated into the warp by a miscast. He vouched for Caster in Fieldorf. He's well known in Fieldorf. So for him to die in defense of Fieldorf is like a big PR push for the Solland Revivalists, whereas like Wissenland failed to defend the city and then mostly died struggling to defend it until Caster's people came in and won it. You know, Caster, he seems to be pretty good at PR from what I gather. Anyway, yes, the Solland Wissenland will be 2,500, the Empire Sylvania 2,000, the Clan Deathtoll Sylvania another 2,000. And I might look into a defending scenario. That could be interesting, like actually defending Drakenhof from a Skaven siege. That could be really interesting. I'll look into that. I don't know how possible that'll be. And then the final thing is they get to spend gold to increase the amount that they have in the battle. And yeah, everybody has a lot of gold. And that's because I've not been spending it in battles. So first of all, Wissenland gets a free 100 for having the largest empire. And then they can spend up to 25 gold each for 10 points per gold. So I think Solland is going to put bloody 25 in. I think they're going to hold 2 back because they have to. But this is their one chance to take Fieldorf back. They are putting in 25 gold to give themselves an extra 250 points. Given that Wissenland has the gold to spare, is already up 100 points, and they see what this could be, I think they're also going to put in... Oh, God, how am I going to split this? They're going to put in 25 gold as well, because this is going to be a very big battle for them. So they're putting in 25 gold, which they only get on the Solland battle. They won't get that on the Skull Smashers, whereas they do get the largest empire benefit on the Skull Smashers. So this battle, Solland is fielding 2,750, Wisland 2,850. Huge battle coming in. I looked into it, and yeah, there are official siege scenarios in Blood in the Badlands, so I'll go with one of those, and we'll have a siege of Drakenhof. How does that sound? So that means it is ordinary points values. Skaven are going to put in 14, because, you know, they really, really, really want to take that castle. So yeah, they're going to put in 14 gold, and Sylvania, I think, I kind of want to spend some gold, so I think they're going to put in 25, because it's their capital that's being assaulted. And I've been trying to keep the gold pretty much even to keep the battles as fair as possible. But I also kind of think this is part of the point of the campaign, that they have these gold disparities. So I'm going to try it. I'm going to see how it goes in this round of the campaign, where we just let them rip with whatever gold disparity they can afford. So I'll put that in there. So let me know what you think of gold disparities. I mean, the 100 for the largest empire, that's the only disparity between Wisland and Solland. But here, they're going to... Sylvania are on the defense and are going to have 110 extra points. But apparently the siege battle is balanced for an equal points value, so it's not like one has to have a lower, like in some versions of Siege. Anyway, we'll find out how it works together. Skull Smashers are going to hold on to their gold because, frankly, they really need to build up more before it's worth spending it, if that makes sense. The Empire, they are going to put in some gold into the attack on Sylvania, so I think they're going to put in 10 gold, because they also want to keep an amount back, particularly if I do end up starting to spend it more. They are going to need to keep enough back so that they can essentially try and level it off when someone hits them with 25. They're going to put in 10. Sylvania, they're going to take the disparity, so the Empire are going to have 100 points over Sylvania in the battle. You know what? I've changed my mind about something. I think the Sylvania Death Toll match fighting over Drakenhof should be a 2,500 point match. So that means that we have two 2,500 point matches this round, and it's Death Toll and Sylvania, and Wisland and Solland. So how is this for a battle order? We'll start off with Skull Smashers versus Wisland, then Empire versus Sylvania, Solland versus Wisland in the battle for Fieldorf, and then Sylvania versus Death Toll in the battle for Drakenhof. So a lot of climactic things. The campaign is really heating up as they're trying to conquer each other's big cities, and it should be good. So thank you very much for watching. Some of the battles are going to be long in this one. I may not get them out each week, depending on how long they are and how long it takes me to record and edit them. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I'll be back with more Mighty Empires soon. I hope you're still enjoying the campaign as much as I am, and I will catch you later.